But when they've got everything on the God's living earth that they can eat and they can wear and they can live in,
Okay.
and all that their
1,
children can
2,
live in and
3,
wear, and each
4.
one of their children.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Andy that's in the Bonnevilles podcast.
Then we got to call Mr. Morgan,
Um,
Mr. Mellon, and Mr.
yeah,
Rockefeller back
I
at
hope
the
you're well.
courthouse.
This is just a quick update, sort of just a wee quick episode. I'm not going to linger too long. I'm going to run through a few things that are happening in the world at the minute, and all that sort of stuff. But I won't go into an awful lot of detail. I'm just going to fucking skim over a few things. And even since I prepared for this, the world news thing is moving so fast that it's in danger of it being out of date by the time you get to talk about it. But here we go. So first thing, like, share, subscribe, everybody. Get over to the YouTubes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that I'm using some new fancy technologies. So I've got little graphics up here on the screen with me. I'm using OBS to try and just to help me do this thing a little bit better. If you're listening to this, it won't matter. If you are listening to it, consider going over to YouTube, and if you do, give me a subscribe. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter as well. So, pardon me. So the weekend, last weekend, you may have seen the episode I did, Left Field from Lurgan, where Rory Creaney, our friend, and his friends got together and did a Glastonbury from home, because Glastonbury Festival was supposed to be on this weekend that has just passed, and due to the COVID thing, it obviously couldn't happen. Although, with the fucking current leadership managing to fuck up literally everything they've looked at, I'm surprised it didn't go ahead. I'm sure that was more down to the organisers rather than the government. The government would have let them, the bunch of bastards. But, excuse me. So Glastonbury was supposed to go ahead, or it's supposed to happen. It didn't go ahead, and they encouraged people to do it from home. So at the same time, the government had eased sort of restrictions. You know, we could get together in small groups and all this sort of stuff. You know, not huge groups. So people took that as an opportunity to run to the coast and go to the beaches in their hundreds of thousands. But we didn't do that. So we gathered at a friend's garden here, just around the corner from me, actually. A beautiful little part. You see the backdrop in the video is gorgeous. Looks over these lovely woodlands. And we did a little, Rory being, Sinn Fein anti-capitalist, did a little left field, and he interviewed me on my show, my podcast. So that was weird, and that was his idea. I will. It's not me being an egomaniac. But the reason that I bring it up, towards the end of the thing, which is only about 45-50 minutes, and it's really good. I've watched it back, and I'm quite happy with it, and a little bit of audience participation in there as well. Rory asked me to invite 4 political figures to a dinner party. So by the time I was a zinger out of the blue, didn't know it was happening, didn't know that question was coming, I should say. So, and I was starting to get drunk because I've been drinking beers for a few hours. So I want to change my 4. I was completely caught out, and I invited Angela Merkel to dinner. I know. So fuck that. I don't want to invite Angela Merkel to dinner anymore. In fact, I never did. So I want to change my 4 that I'm inviting to dinner. Number 1, Fidel Castro. Number 2, Che Guevara Lynch. Ernesto Che Guevara Lynch. You know, he's half got Irish blood in his veins. You know that, don't you? Jimmy Dore, James Connolly, and if I could have a 5th, I would go George Carlin. And if Fidel would shut up from time to time, I reckon that would be brilliant. That would be a good party. I'd like that. And obviously, I'd like to go because I'm my own political hero too, as you should be yours. So there we go. So there's that. Whew! Feels good to get that off my chest. Actually, I was a little fucking cringing all weekend thinking about that. Fucking Angela fucking Merkel. Imagine inviting her into your house. after what she did to Greece. But anyway, not on her own, of course, but you know, she was involved. So what the things I'm going to talk about, and again, you're going to have to bear with me here because I'm playing with the new fancy ass tech. And boom, there we go. So I have a little video up on screen. You can see it here. I'm going to have to get used to doing the right hand. I don't know on the screen. It's flipped for me. So on the screen, I've got a little video up of from YouTube, and it's a guy called Glenn Greenwald, and he's explaining on his. He's a great investigative journalist and reporter. He currently lives in Brazil, and very brave man. And you'll know him actually. You'll know him from. He was the guy that Edward Snowden gave the information to, that all ended up on WikiLeaks. Remember that? You know, Edward Snowden is now hiding out in Russia. So another very brave man. So Glenn Greenwald is, as I say, he's an investigative journalist. One of the he writes for, is it I think it's the Grey Zone that he writes for. No, The Intercept. There's the logo on the screen actually. The Intercept, another good organisation, and he's certainly good within it. And in this video in particular, he's talking about the Israel is about to annex part of the Jordan Valley on the West Bank, Palestine, and again, and it's going against. I mean, it's against international law. It's against the UN and everything, and you know. So, but in this video, he lays out quite clearly what the problem is with that. Why? I mean, we know why it's wrong, but you know, he lay out in more detail. But interestingly enough, for me, he talks to one of the founders of the BDS movement, the Boycott, Divest and Sanction thing, which basically means that you don't buy Israeli goods. So they put pressure on governments not to import Israeli goods, and they put pressure on consumers by highlighting the fact that certain products are made in the occupied territories in Palestine, and we shouldn't buy these. My very laptop is made by HP, and apparently those are made, or they make products down there in the, and I didn't know. Obviously, I didn't know that when I bought it. I've got it now. I can't do anything about it. But it's just something that we all need to be aware of whenever we're making our purchases, that we should be alert to these things. But excuse me, Glenn Greenwald, he makes a couple of points, and one of the questions is why now? Whenever you're thinking about this, because Israel has incrementally taken land. I wish I had the little graphic. Let me see if I can find it here. Israel has incrementally taken land from Palestine, from the West Bank, for decades now, as we know. I mean, the Palestine as a country is literally shrinking. I'll see if I can find this actually. Israel, Palestine map. But yeah, there we go. Perfect. Come up straight away. So I'll just drag this. So they've been taking land for years, but they've always denied what they were doing. What Israel said, what they claimed they were doing, was they were it was security. They were doing it in the name of security. So they would claim that they were well, that's it. In the name of security, that they were taking this land, and then whenever they felt safe to do so, they would give it back. So they never admitted that they were. It's called annexing. They never admitted that they were annexing the land, but they've admitted it this time, and that's what's different. This is what's different now. And that begs the question: why now? See if I can pull this image up for you. Again, this is all new to me, so I'm kind of struggling a little bit. I'll be a bit quicker and a bit better at this as the time goes on. But it begs the question. There we go. Can you see that? Perfect. You just make it a little smaller. So it begs the question, why now? So here we go. So you can see on the graphic here, this was the original Palestine, and these areas in the white up here were the Jewish settlements, and the green was the Palestine. This is after World War II, 1947. As George Galloway says, one country promised the land of another. One people's promised the land of another people's to a third people's. This is what happened, and then you can see from the partition plan, 1947 to 1949 to 1967, and you see Palestine shrinking until there's the West Bank, that little green block on its own, and then these little green spots is the present day Palestine, and the white is all Israel, which is weirdly enough what most Israelis are, which is white. They're not people from the Middle East. But there we go. So you can see how huge of an issue. Can you imagine if this was going on in your own country? I mean, really, can you? I mean, would you just passively sit back and do nothing? I mean, it's just bizarre. And it has happened here in Ireland, of course, which is why Irish people have a lot of sympathy with the Palestinian plight. But anyway, I digress. So, Glenn Greenwald asks the question, why now? And he answers it quite well, I think. So, and there are reasons, there are specific reasons that he points to. I'll just go through a couple of them. I think he does 4 or 5. I'm just going to hit you with a couple. One is the current Trump administration is very pro-Israel, as we know. It couldn't be any more pro-Israel. You know, they're literally lockstep. I would say that the American political system is lost to Israel, even going back to one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in international diplomacy was Benjamin Netanyahu addressing the Senate against the will and without the permission of the current president with the president at the time, which was Barack Obama. That was bizarre. That was insane to me. That was just showed you where the real power, the ley lines of power really lay. So the current Trump administration is so pro-Israel, they can get away with anything, pretty much. They feel that they can anyway. It's good. It's an opportune time to be so bold and do this thing. We're taking this land. That's it. And the land as well is also very strategically placed. It's to do with Syria. It's close to Syria and whatever. You know, I won't go into it. I could go on about that for a bit. The second point he makes is Donald Trump may lose the election in November. There's an American election in November this year, as you probably know, and Donald Trump may lose that. Now, not because the Democrats have put up such a stunning candidate to defeat him in the walking death rattle that is Joe Biden. The man doesn't even know where he is most of the time, seems to me. It's because the economy is in trouble. Not the stock market, the high street. So it's two different things. This is why the stock market doesn't matter to you. Whenever they tell you the stock market's doing well, so everything's well. No, they're not related. Fucking diesel prices went down to -20. They were paying people to take oil off their hands. They weren't paying me to take oil off their hands. I still had to pay for it. So the stock market isn't a true reflection of the health of an economy. You've got to determine what is your economy. Is it your people, or is it these institutions that recycle money? But basically, the real economy in America is doing badly, which is the high street, the people. People got no health care, they're losing jobs. 50% of all, Richard Wolff was saying the other day, 50% of all rents, commercial rents, so your shops, went unpaid for the month of June, May and June. And a really high number of domestic rents as well. They say there's rent strikes going on, but it's not technically a rent strike. It's a de facto rent strike because people don't have the money to pay the rent, so they're saying, oh, fuck it, it's a rent strike. The reality, if they had the money, they'd probably pay it. They literally don't have it, so they're using it as an opportunity to say, no, we're on a rent strike. So that real world economy isn't doing so well. Isn't doing well, and it isn't doing well. It's doing terribly. So these things are all having an effect on whether Donald Trump is going to get re-elected for a second term in November. If the Democrats had put up anyone even remotely likable or remotely real, I have no doubt that they would have won. But they would win. But they did exactly the same with Hillary Clinton. Is literally the only woman in America that couldn't defeat Donald Trump. They could have put a fucking pineapple up, and America probably would have voted for it over her. She's a horrible, horrible character. I mean, you know that things that she's been involved in, the things that she's created and sponsored, that has decimated the American working class and middle class for decades. You understand why America decided not to vote for her. If I was an American, I couldn't have voted for her. I'm not saying I would have voted for Donald Trump, but I'm telling you now, I wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. But I understand why Americans didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And again, the election coming up in November, if Americans don't vote for Joe Biden, I get it. I would understand, because I wouldn't vote for him. I definitely wouldn't vote for him. So Donald Trump's in danger of losing this election. So Israel, we'll get back to the point. So Israel is now annexing a part of the Jordan Valley, the West Bank, because they may not get a chance to do it because, Joe Biden is, he's no friend of Palestine, but I don't think Israel is going to be able to get away with just as much under Joe Biden. And one of the other things, another point that Glenn Greenwald made, which is interesting, is that Benjamin Netanyahu is currently being impeached. The Israelis, for all their flaws, and we all have flaws, the Israelis, for all their flaws, they do go after corruption in government, and they've been quite they will jail ex-presidents. They've done it in the past, and high officials. So he's being impeached for corruption, and this may serve as a distraction, because that's another thing that, as we know, governments like to do. They whenever they're coming under pressure at home, they'll go and start a war somewhere else, or something like, or do something big. Tony Blair done it. David Cameron has done it. Barack Obama has done it. Bill Clinton has done it. George W. Bush has done it. George Bush Sr. has done it. Donald Trump has done it. Margaret Thatcher has done it. These imperial powers, that's what they do. And Israel, in this case, there's that as well, because people will be distracted, because it's a big fucking deal down there too, and there are a lot of Israelis protesting against it, by the way. In the Jerusalem Post, the paper of note in Israel, are reporting that, or is it Haaretz? Is it? I can't remember. But so there's those things. So go and watch this video, and Glenn interviews, as I said, the guy, I can't remember his name, who founded the BDS movement. And look at that picture. That's fucking awesome, isn't it? It's so dynamic. It looks like a fucking painting from the Renaissance. So he speaks to the guy that founded the BDS movement. The BDS, the boycott, divest, sanction. As you know, now the reason that the reason that specifically he's talking to that guy is because Israel has basically admitted this. That then brings in the UN in, and it's in the UN's charter, the first Charter 1 or whatever it's called. You're not allowed to do this. This is annexing other people's land. You're not allowed to do it. The definitions are on Wikipedia. You can go and check it out, but it explains in why annexing people's land is just stealing people's land. You know how to fucking do it. The last big person who did it was Hitler. He annexed Poland. Remember that? Kicked off, didn't it? So you're not allowed to do that. So this then brings in the UN, and they then have to punish the annexers, if you want. And the only way they can do it is to sanction. Because that's all the UN can do, really. Send in peacekeepers and sanction. There's a few other things, really, but that's your options. And they're not going to send in peacekeepers. So it's going to be. So they're actually going to have to talk about sanctioning Israel for this particular thing, which brings in legitimizes the BDS movement, if you understand what that means, because Israel has gone to great lengths to delegitimize the BDS movement and label everybody that supports it as anti-Semitic, right? Going so far as certain companies in America, certain states, if you work for a particular state or county or whatever, if you're going to be the local dog catcher, you have to sign a pledge to not support the BDS movement against Israel. If you're working in a fucking as a parking warden in Missouri, it's that big. So this thing with the UN is really interesting because it could legitimize the BDS movement. Now the BDS movement is legitimate in my eyes and to many others' eyes. I try not to buy anything from Israel as and when I can, and it's very difficult to not to do that sometimes. But if it legitimizes this BDS movement by proxy, right now we got to remember the last sanction, the last boycott move, the last major boycott movement we had in the world, such as it is, was the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and it was the boycotting of South Africa. Remember? I remember. No one didn't buy South African oranges and all that shit, and it was that put the pressure on the apartheid regime in South Africa, which ultimately brought it to its knees and overturned it. So there's that. It's very interesting, and I'm just going to I'll just keep an eye on it, see what happens, and I really hope that Israel doesn't do what they say they're going to do, but I think they are, and it's very sad. And I live in support of the people of Palestine. I feel so sorry for them, what they go through. And you fucking people up here claiming their fucking civil rights are being turned on their arses because they're expected to wear a mask. Take it somewhere else. Okay, so what was the other thing? Yeah. So this was the second bit I want to talk to you about. This article. I'll just get it up on my thing so that I can look at it while I'm asking you to look at it. So there's this fantastic article in Slugger O'Toole. So here in Northern Ireland we have this these journalists, and they have this website called Slugger O'Toole. The guys, and they go on the news and they talk about all the local stuff, and they're fucking brilliant. I really do like them. Again, it's run by a guy called Mick Fealty, and he talks a lot. They talk mostly about Irish politics, and mostly about Northern Irish politics. But this article came up, and it was written by a guy called Choya13. That's his Twitter handle, @Choya13. And he's an Orange man from County Fermanagh. And he writes this article. I'll just read the title, the headline out to you if you're listening to this one. It's called, "If Unionism is to maintain Northern Ireland's membership of the UK, then it must change and evolve. Otherwise it will become a footnote in a forgotten story." Now, this blew me away. I read this yesterday morning, Sunday. This is Monday afternoon now. Yeah, 1 o'clock-ish. This blew me away. When I read the article, the guy goes into much more depth than I'm capable of at my very best. But he hits a lot of the same points that I've been banging on about unionism and the lack of leadership, and he actually talks about that lack of the paucity of leadership within unionism and the danger that it has for unionists. Because, as you know, but if you know anything about me, if you've been watching my pods, I want a united Ireland, and I'm working towards a united Ireland in any way that I can. And the only prerequisite is that it's peaceful. And for that to happen, unionists have to almost, I don't know if they're ever going to buy into it, but they have to be a part of the conversation. And they're not. They almost, they don't even want to talk about it. And I understand why. But he talks about the leadership problem, and it's one of the key factors that I find that is, I'm starting to understand in these current times what good leadership and bad leadership looks like, and what difference it makes to you as an individual and to your country. What I mean by that, if you need an example of it, look at the countries that have what you would call a good leader, and look at the countries with what you could call a bad leader, what I would call a bad leader. I'm only talking for myself here. New Zealand, Jacinta, oh my God, I never remember her name. Good leader. New Zealand's economy's all back open again. We got fuckwits, bad leadership, bad across the board, not just at the top in the cabinet. It's terrible, right? So the importance of good leadership cannot be understated. And the last good leader that unionism had, and this guy points it out, was David Irvine. And I was delighted because I'm not a unionist, so a unionist could just say to me, "Now you're fucking talking complete shit, shut up." But this article confirmed a lot of what I suspected. And he goes through the article, and you really, I urge you, it's long, but stick with it. It's fucking fantastic. He goes through leadership, the history of Protestant, of unionism, Orangism, loyalism, etc., long-term vision, universal themes, economy, demographics, reaching out, etc. It's Brexit. So I'll read you one line from it. It is ridiculous to the point of contempt for Sammy Wilson to be making ludicrous statements in Westminster before going on the offensive against Alliance councillors on social media, and the lack of contrition from the DUP on the Brexit fiasco is not endearing them to anyone. That's a very, very polite way of saying bad leadership, and these are all fuckwits. And the fact that within unionism that it's being noticed. Now, he'll get abused for this. Now, I follow him on Twitter, and most of the stuff that well, as of from yesterday that I could see was people going, "Great article, thank you very much, this is fantastic." And I spoke to a couple of guys about the article, and we're on agreement. It just stunned. But for me, I've been talking about this for a few months now. This is the problem that loyalism has, that unionism has. They might find themselves bounced into fucking United Ireland that they don't want to be in. And it's important for me that there's a strong British identity for these people if they want it, which I'm sure they do. In any United Ireland, it's important for us all. It's important for our peace. But you can't give it to them. I can't give it to them. I'm not a unionist. They have to ask for it, so they have to talk about it, so they have to identify with the fucking... Do you know what I mean? If you're following my podcast, you know, we're talking with Rory. He thinks within 10 years we're going to get this border poll and we could be on for a United Ireland. You know, these people aren't even talking about that, let alone preparing for it. And I labelled out, I identified a strategy a few weeks back where loyalists and the PUL community within Northern Ireland could lead the charge and set themselves up in the high seat in a new Ireland with a all-Ireland NHS, etc., make these demands. I believe that, and he talks about the NHS as well, about the NHS is key to the union. That's exactly what I said. NHS is key to United Ireland. If the British continue to destroy the NHS, and if we in a new United Ireland say, right, we're going to have an NHS, which we don't have, but if we're going, we'll have a United Ireland in the morning, because it is actually the social security and that support, that safety net of the social the welfare state. Although the welfare state has pretty much been dismantled, but it is that welfare state, that social security net, that keeps a lot of people in the Union from Northern Ireland. You say, well, what are we going to have? Are we going to get the Southern healthcare system? No, we're going to have better. We're going to have better. We're going to have better than what you're used to now. We're going to do the best that we're going to give the best healthcare and the best social security available. So there you go. So I urge you to read the article. It's on the Slugger O'Toole website, sluggerotoole.com, and it's fantastic. I'll link to it underneath the YouTube video. I'll link to it underneath the show notes for your podcast, but it probably won't come up in a clickable link. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So, third thing and final thing, the Irish government has formed. So, just to keep you up to date, and I've deliberately brought up a headline there, from the Irish Times. And this is from yesterday. So the international coverage of the coalition deals consistently spells Michael incorrectly. That's it. That's what they have to talk about. In the name of good fuck, talk about making yourselves redundant. That is fucking shocking. We formed a new government, and that's the headline on the Irish Times website on yesterday morning. There it is. No, maybe that was Saturday morning, even. It was the day before. Shocking. Fucking shocking. So this is what's happened. As you know, Ireland had an election in February. The reigning administration was unable to garner enough votes to form a government, so they've had to cobble together this coalition without Sinn Fein, which is most important to them. They don't want Sinn Fein anywhere near them, which has pissed a lot of people off, because Sinn Fein clearly have the momentum and clearly are speaking for more people. If they had fielded more candidates, I'm sure they ruined that decision to this day, but if they had fielded more candidates, they would have been in government. It would have happened by now. It would have happened in February. Then what happened, the COVID thing. So ceasefire was called. Everyone let's just get through this first. Now the economy's opening back up again. Ireland's starting to open back up again slowly. Now they started talks with the other parties to try and form their government, and they did. And they've cobbled together this coalition of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and the Greens. The Greens, very disappointing. Supposed to be a left-wing party, they're not. The Greens in the south are not. The Greens in the north are. The Greens in the north are actually the same party. I didn't realise it. I thought they were just sister parties. But the Greens in the north voted against the deal, because the Green Party had to reach out to their membership to get permission to go into this coalition. And they voted against the deal, and the Greens in the south voted for it. But it wouldn't have mattered. There wasn't enough Greens in the north that would have voted as Rory told me this. There was only something like 200 out of 1,000 members actually bothered to vote, so it wouldn't have changed anything anyhow. So they have decided to go into coalition with the centre-right government, and it's very, very disappointing. It is very disappointing, but such as it is, it's the establishment trying to cling to power, as such as exactly what the establishment does. The thing that fucking bewilders me is why do these Greens, being the junior partner, why do they refuse to learn the lessons of history? Everywhere you have a junior partner, they get fucked. Lib Dems, propping up David Cameron's Tory government. The Lib Dems had never been so popular, almost got fucking wiped out come the next general election. Going back on key pledges that was in their manifesto, the tuition fees for students, etc., etc. Look at the DUP. although technically not a partner, but propping up a Tory government, keeping the Tory government in power for a couple of years, 2 years, and then they got fucked, absolutely fucked, by that same Tory government. By the same characters as well, although there was a different Prime Minister at the time, but Boris Johnson just completely ruined them. Again, I spoke about this on a podcast a while back too, which you could see coming a mile away, and they still did it. So fuck them. Down south, the Labour Party went into coalition as the junior partner, got fucked. The Greens in Germany, I think, the same thing happened to them. So this is anywhere you see a coalition government happening where there's a junior partner, the junior partner always ends up getting fucked, and it staggers me that they would agree to this. Because so that's the current state of affairs. Now, I don't know enough about Irish politics to talk much more than that about it, but I'm going to make a prediction. Quite good at this. I predict, so this current government of Michael Martin, Leo Varadkar, and what's his fucking name? Ryan. Eamon Ryan, that's it. So they're going to be in power for the next 5 years. They're going to continue on with their neoliberal right-wing austerity politics. The Green Party, who are supposed to try to get green policies implemented, won't get anything done. It'll be greenwashing. That's what they call, greenwashing, whenever a corporation or whatever changes its logo or puts a little recycle sticker on some horrible shit that it fucking on a Coca-Cola bottle or something that nobody needs. So they'll limp on, but the people of Ireland are going to pay the price, because these same policies have created a housing crisis and a healthcare crisis for a couple of decades now, a decade and a bit, right? So all our young people are still emigrating, shamefully still fucking emigrating. It is a disgrace. You can get a good job in Ireland and you can't afford to pay your rent. And our children are leaving for other countries in a modern Western society to go and work in their countries and not work here for us in Ireland. It's shameful. It's absolutely fucking shameful. But they will limp on and they will continue to implement these bullshit policies. And this is what's going to happen. In the intervening 5 years, Sinn Fein, whose ground game is fantastic, right? They're going to develop that. And all the other left-wing parties are too. People before profit are quite good as well on the ground. But they're going to develop their ground game. And come the next election in 2025, if not before, I can't see it, but it'll probably be 2025. Sinn Féin's going to wipe out a few motherfuckers. They're not just going to win, they're going to destroy. Literally, they're going to wipe out establishment parties. I think that's what's going to happen, because there's nothing that indicates anything other than that. I'm trying to be pragmatic and practical about it. I think that's what's going to happen, and I think that Sinn Féin could form the next government on its own. It could be that big. There's the potential for that. And if they do go into a coalition, they'll go in with a good, strong left wing. Hopefully, someone like People Before Profit. So that's my prediction. I think that's what's going to happen. Again, I don't know. I'm not. How will we know? We won't know for a few years yet. But if I'm right, you heard it here first. Okay, so that's me. Just gonna wrap it up. By the way, you like my t-shirt? Yes, I know. Second day in a row of a Liverpool top. Give it to me, right? 30 fucking years since we last won the league. So listen, thanks a million for listening and watching. If you're listening, get over to the YouTubes. If you're watching, get on to your podcast provider. Like, share, subscribe, leave little reviews, all that shit. Share. If you could share, that would be great as well. I'd like to get I'd like to get my numbers up on YouTube and Twitter, especially. Instagram, I'm kind of cool on Instagram. There's lots of you on Instagram. I've been using it for years, but I've just started my Twitter account again. I'll explain why I abandoned my last one. It got too fucking toxic. I had to leave it. I'll explain it some other time. But so if you could lend me your support through your social media, that would be awesome. What was the other thing? Yes, so in the coming weeks, I announced last night I'm going to be doing a podcast with Barry Kerr. Barry's my cousin, and he's an artist and a musician, and most of you probably know who I'm talking about. You probably know him, and those of you that don't, you're in for an absolute treat. Barry is the quintessential Irish Renaissance guy. He's a fantastic artist and an even better musician, multi-instrumentalist, plays the pipes, the uilleann pipes and all, and he's just been awarded the Liam O'Flynn grant by the National Theatre down in Dublin. So he's going to be doing a gig in the National Concert Hall, which I can assure you my entire family is absolutely buzzing about. We can't wait. We're all going to go down and see him and lend him our support. So we're going to be doing a podcast with him, and then I think that might be this week. And then next week, I think, I'm going to be doing a podcast with a guy called Mark Casey, who is an anthropologist. He studied anthropology, and he did his dissertation on pre-Christian Irish culture and how that is kind of making a comeback. People are abandoning the established church here in Ireland, which is the Catholic Church, and they are, by the way. They're looking back to the old gods, looking to nature and all these the folklores and all the things that we grew up with. This stuff, you know, about fairies and banshees, and these are all pre-Christian things. You know what I mean? And they still exist in our collective mythology. So they're and bit of witchcraft and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm really interested about that as well. It's going to be rather cool, I think. So there we go. Done. I'll get. I think the next one I'm going to do is with Barry Kerr. So I'm hoping that's this week. I'm waiting to get a message from Barry, but he just needs to let me know. He's to come up from Dublin, and we'll get it done. He's a fucking great guy, and I'm sure if you don't know him, you'll fall in love with him. Over the course of the interview, he's a top fella. So there we go. Thanks everybody. Thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
They can't eat it. They can't wear the clothes. They can't live in the house.